Yeah, one thing too is like when you build that team, and it's there's different personalities. But once you've built that team and you start working together and going through challenges on each asset, there's always going to be some challenges. But when you're working together and you realize, man, I'm pretty lucky to have this guy or gal partnering with me. There's no drama. There's no narcissistic behavior. It's like everybody wants to work together to get this, everybody has the same goal. That's hard to find. And so when your next deal comes up, Kyle, you're like, man, I want to partner with those same type of people or those same people.
Welcome to the Creating Wealth Podcast, where Kyle Curtin takes you on an extraordinary journey alongside renowned multifamily real estate experts from every corner of the United States. We teach you how to harness the power of real estate investing and witness the transformation of your wealth building strategy. Let's create wealth together.
What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 142 of the Creating Wealth Podcast. Today, we have the great pleasure of chatting with Wayne Courreges III. Wayne is the managing principal of CREI Partners, a commercial real estate investment company out of Central Texas that focuses on helping busy professionals build generational wealth through commercial real estate syndications. Wayne, what's going on, man? How are you? Super excited to have you on.
I'm good, Kyle. Enjoyed getting to know you a little bit before the show. So excited. You're easy to talk to, so that's why you're the host. But it'll be easy to flow. So I'm excited to hopefully provide some great value to your listeners and, all learn together.
Absolutely, man. 100%. And it's funny you say that because I've only been on the other side of the table a couple times and I've been taught super tongue tied. I'm like, it's a total different ball game being on the receiving end versus the host end, as you know. But
well, from the host end, you don't do as much of the talking.
Yeah.
You let the other person do most of the talking. Your time goes pretty quick with the other people talking. So you don't have to fill as much. So that's been my experience. So
exactly. I hear you, man. But yeah, man. So let's kind of jump into your story. Anywhere that you want to jump in from, where you grew up to first jumping into the real estate industry, anywhere that you want to jump in is totally cool.
I think it's always good for me to start from my high school, and we won't spend 30 minutes on my upbringing, but I had, really the passion of real estate investing in high school. I met a girl, dated her for a while, but her dad was a developer and really just got the itch for real estate investing and developing at an early age. I went in the Marine Corps 2 days out of high school. And when I was stationed in 29 Palms, bought my first single family rental that I, rented to a friend of mine and his wife and their, future baby at the time. And, they rented that house for a couple years. And, when I came back, still continued, to buy real estate and worked for a commercial real estate company, CBRE, for 16 years. So when I got out of the Marine Corps, it was 2007. So I started 4 years and then got into Washington, D.C. Started working for CBRE there and managed office, industrial, retail type properties. And then, so I was there 5 years, went to Houston for 5 years, went to Austin about 5 years, and then went back to Houston. But as each move and each opportunity, I had more responsibility and more growth, on the asset management, property management side of commercial real estate. So my whole background and, in my W-2 and career life was commercial real estate. So 2019, I started CREI Partners. I had this epiphany of I'm making these asset managers clients and, making these asset managers look really, really good. And, none of this is, I say, rocket science. It is complicated, but it's not to a point where, everybody that's listening to your podcast and reading books and able to, take action can do, right? So I started in 2019, really focusing on multifamily at the time, and I still do. But multifamily was my 100% focus, and more so because it was not competing with my day job. I was working office and retail, and I didn't really want to compete with my clients or the company. So I was focusing on multifamily. I also had a big passion about multifamily because I saw the ups and downs in office and retail in particular just through my W-2 career. And because, different economic cycles, et cetera, impacted those differently. But at the end of the day, multifamily, everybody needs a place to live. So I was like, you know what, let me get a mentor and really go all in on this space. So speeding up to 2023, in June, I went full-time on our real estate investments. At that point, I think we had about 30 million assets under management that we were heavily controlling, and it just was getting too much. I tried to do the best I could on my W-2. I really enjoyed, I had no issues, working for my client and team. There are many aspects that I miss about working with them, but I just was showing up every day thinking about my real estate investments, right? So that's where we are now. I mean, we're in January 2024 and 100% focused on multifamily. We do RV, boat, and business storage as well. We have a build to rent community, and we bought a retail with a partner in Huntsville, Alabama last month. So we are diversifying a little bit, but primarily we're multifamily and developing RV, boat, business type storage.
That's super cool, man.
Yeah.
I love kind of your background from, in the W-2 space, being in the same part of the industry, just in, with targets focusing on different sectors.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's important because it's like the jargon and working during business plans, renovations. Like for me, my comfort level is day one of owning and operating an asset.
Yeah.
We have to capital raise. We got to go through due diligence. Those are things that, have to be done. But for me, my comfort zone is day one of operating an asset. And that's what I enjoy most. I mean, we typically do 2 or 3 deals a year. There are definitely a lot of teams out there and doing, pretty well. They do almost, I feel like I get an email monthly about another deal that they're raising capital or they're doing something on. We are extremely hands-on. We aren't raising capital for other people's deals that we're not involved in asset management, that we don't have decision-making. All but one of our properties or 2 of our properties are we loan signers, that we have skin in the game, that investing. I mean, I feel personally responsible for anybody's capital that are investing in deals. And so it's hard for me to raise for other people's deals. One, you can't, SEC, there's some guidelines on it. I mean, do say that, but at the same time, it's like, I want to be close to the driver's seat, if not in the driver's seat, ensuring that the property is going as well as it could. There's always ups and downs. I mean, we don't have all of our properties like just going amazingly well. I mean, the market's tough right now, but at the end of the day, we're grinding it out and, working as hard as we can for our investors. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. No, I totally hear you, and one thing that, I did want to ask you, you were kind of, digging through some of your story there, is when you were, I guess, starting to consider, opening up your business, you're still at your W-2 job.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you think that your experiences in, the office sector, I don't know if you mentioned the retail sector, like just like, those kind of areas, do you think that like the things that you had seen and experienced and the positives and the negatives kind of pushed you towards that multifamily sector and be like, yeah, never mind. What I mean?
Well, I think again, the biggest thing at the time is, I didn't want to compete with the day job.
Yeah.
And then I had to get behind, the asset class that I was personally investing in, and then also syndicating, bringing other people. And multifamily really, still to this day, like I'm super excited about multifamily for many reasons. But the biggest is at the end of the day, there's a housing shortage and people need a place to live. Right. And now there are huge headwinds today than there were when I first started. Evictions and, are high, and the delays to get people evicted are taking much longer than it was. Insurance and property taxes. I mean, there's a lot of headwinds, interest rates. But at the end of the day, like real estate, with it being such a physical asset, and then there's a need for your physical space, and that need is to provide people housing. That that's always excited me, providing a good community. I love buying properties that are rough around the edges, and, you do your renovations and you build the community to do better. So I enjoyed that piece. From a financial standpoint, whether you look at an income statement for an office property or an income statement at a multifamily, it's all the same. I mean, your income, your expenses, they may, instead of, resident rent, it's office rent, or, storage, antenna rent, utility billings or CAM in the office world. So there's maybe a little nuances on terminology, but it's the same. Rent roll is the same. Instead of, 105, units for multifamily, maybe there's 10 office leases, but the same setup in our rent roll is the same. The tenant name, unit, when they sign the lease, when their lease expires, what's their monthly, other income charges. So that was, transitioning was pretty easy. What was different and why I felt like, regardless of my background in commercial real estate, because I had a lot of experience running and operating properties, where I really needed the help was underwriting. And so from a mentoring standpoint, underwriting and putting on the analyst cap and looking at comparable properties, asking the right questions, building the team to help you get to the finish line. Because I always say, from a syndicator standpoint, you're sort of the quarterback. You're finding people to help offset weaknesses so you can get across the finish line. And over time, Kyle, from a quarterback standpoint, you then also can start taking on more load of the team because your net worth is growing or your experience is growing, you're getting more credibility, et cetera. And so you can take more piece of the pie from a general partner standpoint, more than what you can when you're first starting out.
Yeah, I think it makes a ton of sense, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And there's definitely, a huge lesson in there about the strength of your team, and exactly, just kind of picking up the areas that you definitely, excel in, and then finding others to, that you resonate very well with to complement the sides that you may not be as strong in.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep. Now, one thing too is like when you build that team, and it's, there's different personalities, but once you've built that team and you start working together and going through challenges on each asset, there's always going to be some challenges. But when you're working together and you realize, man, I'm pretty lucky to have this guy or gal partnering with me, there's no drama. There's no narcissistic behavior. It's like everybody wants to work together to get this, everybody has the same goal. That's hard to find. And so when your next deal comes up, Kyle, you're like, man, I want to partner with those same type of people or those same people. And, part of that's networking and building those relationships and stuff, but you really don't know what the person's character is until you start going through some challenging times. And when those challenging times, it really brings out people's true colors. But when you have those people that are like, I'd go to battle with this guy or lady, those are the type of people you want to surround yourself with. And you become, you may not even need them at some point because you're able to raise the capital. You're able to sign on the debt. You're able to find your own deals and asset manage. And maybe you've built out your own team, like, with CREI Partners, like we have team members that do a lot of this stuff. But, what happens when if something, I walk out of my office tonight and a bus hits me, I like to have, certain individuals on repeat deals so they can take care of my investors if something were to happen to me. Right. Yeah. And so that experience and that trust and that partnership is extremely important, because we're dealing with multi-million-dollar assets here and millions of dollars of other people's money. So that partnership and that experience is huge. More so even than just the person that, is leading the deal.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I'm kind of curious, like, take us through that first syndication that you guys did. Like, what was like running through your head? Like, how did you source it? Like, did like a broker bring it to you? Like, did you like direct mail them or something? Like, take us through the first time.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, the first time ended up being an off-market transaction. Like the first deal that I truly syndicated myself was an off-market transaction. But leading up to that, it took a lot of broker conversations, a lot of off-market search and underwriting and failing at getting a deal across the finish line. big part of it now, looking back, sort of a blessing, because, some of those deals, I would be underwriting, and it could, somebody could be putting $1 million more on the price tag just so they can buy in Austin or Central Texas. They were okay with lesser returns. They believe the market was going to just continue accelerating and growing in the right direction. Well, we found that, in today's case, that is not happening. A lot of deals are struggling. So I feel very blessed in the sense of, sticking by the underwriting and not being super aggressive on those deals. But for my first one, Kyle, what you've asked is, so I found deals off market, and I'll give you the full framework of what we did. So, we use CoStar, but there's other lists. When you drive by in a neighborhood, you find a property that you like. We pulled a list of parameters. We want 100 plus units, 1970 or newer. And we took that, and then we went to the Harris County Appraisal District, or the Travis County Appraisal District, or the Bexar County Appraisal District. So we primarily focus Austin, Houston, and San Antonio is where our primary focus of buying assets. And what we did there was we went to those appraisal districts to find who the recorded owner is. Typically, when you go to a tax website, you don't really find the true owner. Maybe residentials you do, but on commercial, there's usually an LLC or maybe an attorney or somebody that's named, or an entity that's named as the owner, which is the recorded owner, which helps in a way, but it doesn't really give you like who the people are that you need to talk to buy the asset off market. So you take that info, you find who the recorded owner is. And then in Texas, I assume it's probably similar in Massachusetts and such, but there's Secretary of State. Yep. And you go to the Secretary of State and you find, you can search that entity, and then who's the true owner behind that property. And sometimes your true owners are still shielded by some attorney or, but for the most part, you can start finding people's individual names. There's individuals behind these LLCs. And then we use BIN Verified. BIN Verified, we paid for the subscription. You put the names of those individuals in BIN Verified. It spits out 4 or 5 numbers. Who knows if they're good or not? But then we use text, through Textedly, and, put those numbers in and sort of blast out text messages. Yeah, I'm that annoying guy that sends text messages. Right? But what we're trying to do, especially during that time, is you're trying to get away from the red waters of where everybody else is finding deals. And most of those people are finding deals through broker relationships. And broker relationships is huge. It's a key deal. I did a deal just a few months ago through a broker relationship. So we value those relationships. But not many people, even if I tell you all the secrets to how do you find that one property on this podcast, the chance of someone actually going to do it, it's very small.
Slim to none.
It's like, if y'all do it, incredible. You should. Because that text message went to a doctor, a cardiologist in Los Angeles, who had owned this particular property since 2006. Now, he wasn't ready to sell. Like, we went back and forth on purchase price for a couple of years. And, he had a medical incident, and the relationship turned from me trying to buy his property to me just caring about him as an individual and seeing, how he's doing. And so it speed up to 2022. He was finally ready to, sell because, he wanted that piece to not have to continue worrying about this property. So we bought it off market, no broker, a text message, a relationship, and 2 years. Now, a lot of time to get from that first point of communication to where we are now. But that's how we found our first deal. Other deals have been broker relationships. We're continuing to try to find good off-market opportunities as well. But what I found, Kyle, is like it is harder to find good deals, and deals like those off-market ones where mom and pop used to own it. Like, it's become a lot more sophisticated. The people, the buyer or the owners out there, are definitely much more sophisticated. But there just takes one property, and if that type of mindset of going through that type of process, and it takes a while. And maybe that means hiring a VA and going through that process with them, and that's a virtual assistant for the VA. So a virtual assistant, helping you in the background. But it does get deals done, and it has really worked well for us.
Yeah, no, I totally hear you, man. I love that story, by the way. Like, it's crazy. Like, you never know, where some of those opportunities can come from, and some of those initial relationships that, are always good to be built anyway. And you never know, just from giving value and just like being people and that type of thing, what that can look like down the line,
Absolutely.
and that's something that's always incredibly fascinating to me, man. Like, especially with, even for, really like properties of any size, I guess. Like, so say, there was a 6-family in Massachusetts that I walked a little while ago, and the guy wanted like a super crazy number for it. Right. But I'm like, you know what? Like, don't go by anyway. Like, walk it with them, whatever. Like, I know, like, we're not even close to on the same page. You know what I mean? But, because what I was shooting for was basically to, show face and talk and connect and, shoot the breeze about like, small commercial and that type of thing. And I still talk to the guy once in a while. We jumped on a call for like 45 minutes, like a month ago and talked about mold and rats and all the fun stuff and, Massachusetts. But yeah, it's to circle back to your point, man. Like, you never know. And the thing that's always incredibly fascinating to me is like, I feel like so much of like building the momentum and building the relationships, like, just comes down to like just being, like you mentioned, like just like a genuine, like in real person, you know what I mean? And like you mentioned with the seller of that first building, it turns from like more of a, transactional type of mindset in a way to like a lot less so, to like more caring about a person in the relationship, which will then probably circle back around. And like, I love that kind of stuff, man. It's crazy.
Yeah. Being a good person first gets you a lot longer in the long run. Right. Yeah. So that, getting out of that transaction mindset. Now, transactions, that, like you said, I like what you said there. It's like the beginning of it's transaction, but even then, getting to know them, if they message back and then you have that conversation, trying to get a little more, more of their background. Now, I will say not all parts of the country are good with that. People, I'm speaking for Texas. We want to know the people. We want to do business.
Yeah.
With people we like and we trust and we can do a handshake with. I can't speak for everybody in the country who want to just get right to the meat and not have a lot of, sides with that dinner. So that's, that I will say a little catalyst there, because I've seen some New Yorkers come to Texas, and those negotiations and those talks with tenants, especially when I was on the W-2 world, it amazed me. They didn't get the memo that the way we do business in Texas is not,
a little bit different.
It's a lot different. We want to slow dance, a little, but anyway.
I hear you, man. Up in my neck of the woods, you could probably like just kind of call it.
I don't want to throw you all out, be like, hey, go to New York. But goodness gracious. I had one, this is when I was a W-2 employee. I managed a office building, and the major tenant who took 60% of the property, obviously is a big stakeholder in the asset, no matter who owns it. Like, they are a tenant paying most of the bills. So this group came out and wanted to interview the tenant, which I think is fantastic. It's a great time to see what their needs are, to understand, what issues they may have, and really start building that partnership, because you're going to want them to renew. Yeah. Well, they came in straight up New Yorker. These people are oil type Texas people, and they just walked out. The conversation got so
tense.
This guy, what are they thinking? Like, this is not. Kept calling him this lady. What do you say, guy, or I don't know. She in particular. I was just like, oh my gosh, that is not how you talk to her. And they laughed. I was like, that was such a wasted opportunity, because you got to know. So, bringing it back to like multifamily acquisitions or acquisitions in general, it's like, you got to read the room, and, some people are going to want that conversation and relationship, especially if it's their baby. I mean, this cardiologist had owned this since 2006. Like it had been his baby, for many, many years. And recognizing that and talking, building that relationship is great. But you got other people that are not emotionally involved that just, they want you to underwrite, they're giving you a price. And I've had those as well. And there's not as much, back and forth talk. It sort of is what it is on the price. So it can go different ways, but, broker relationships are key, but don't not do the heavy lifting of finding off market through that process I told you about. Now there's a lot of networking opportunities, a lot of conferences, and a lot of people are hurting right now. A lot of loans are expiring, a lot of rate cap notices for renewals, insurance and taxes and interest rates and payroll. I mean, there's a lot of headwinds. And what I say to that is this is a great opportunity to partner with experienced sponsors who have proven themselves and go out and buy assets. When so many people are struggling right now. And for me, and I see a lot of capital just sitting on the sideline. I just want to wait till, and that's normal mentality. And I'm not, it is, that's a safe, let's hold on to our money and not go out and buy and such. I'm opposite. I'm like, finding deals, underwriting deals, looking at opportunities, and really that aggressive mindset of buying. I mean, our last deal, we bought about $1 million less than the appraised value, the tax appraised value, and the price per door just, I mean, it's insane what we got that deal for. And so you have that mindset, Kyle, like, hey, there's no good deals out there. Well, if you think that, then there's no good deals. Like, please keep thinking that, because for me, and the mindset that I have is like, hey, there are deals. It allows buyers to, who are wanting to take action to find those deals. If you think about 2008 and 2009, the people that lost a lot of money and lost their shirts during that financial crisis, think about all the people that bought during that time and the millions that were made by people that were going in when others were going out. And I think you got to be smart about it and don't be buying at, prices that the last couple of years, like have those opportunities, but have that mindset and that focus to, find those opportunities, because there's going to be a lot coming soon.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree, man. And it's funny you say that, because like myself and many others around me, especially up in this neck of the woods, are always buying stuff. Yeah. It's like, if the numbers work, like, the news and the headlines and all these things and the conversations and that type of thing about, like the market's crap, like interest rates are crazy, whatever. It's like, like that's fine if you can think that way, but exactly, man. It's like, if you just accept that, like that's what you're going to see is nothing. Right. But I know a lot of people that are buying in all points in the market. If the numbers check out, what the hell, why not? You know what I mean? And it's absolutely,
I think it's huge. And I'm glad you're doing that, because when you take the information at hand and you underwrite it based on that information, like if insurance is high, it is what it is, project those higher rates going forward. Property taxes here in Texas, do 100% of value. In the past, it could be 80-85% of value, or, in some markets, 90 to 95, but now it's just be safe, 100%. Just assume that you're going to be taxed on the full value. And so when you start putting those metrics into your underwriting, sellers out there are not going to want to sell. And I'm one of those people, because, we bought, properties in 2021 and in 2022. And, those properties, we got to continue pushing the business plan, because on paper, those properties haven't done as well in today's pricing, because cap rates have gone up, interest rates, a lot of headwinds. But what I tell investors, especially because we're cash flowing those a lot of those deals and doing distributions, is like, hey, we're going to continue distributing cash and not be so worried on the sell. The sell will happen, and there's these markets of real estate investing that are going to be going up and down, and you can't time the market. there are a lot of people that sat on the sideline for 10 years in real estate because they thought that it was going to tank the next year because prices are getting out of control. So at the end of the day, like, you take the information, like you said, Kyle, and you underwrite and you get through that process and you buy real estate. But what I tell people, it's like, you're buying a physical asset. We're not buying a virtual coin or, having to buy a piece of paper that we don't physically own, and a tweet or something outside of our power impacts the value of that asset that we bought. Like, no, this is a physical asset that solves a need that, is taking care of its customer base, whether it's the tenants or residents, et cetera. And the markets are going to go up and down. So if you can get through this tough, challenging market, you're going to be better off for it, when people and money and liquidity is back in the markets in another year or two.
Yeah, 100%, man. I couldn't agree more, and it's definitely, it's so true, man. I mean, especially like throughout the sectors. And it's funny you say that too, because like there was a guy that I interviewed recently. The episode hasn't come out yet, but he's like very he has kind of like a different philosophy in a way than most folks do. Like, has more of like a geographic kind of approach for like taking down bigger deals than kind of like a sub asset specific.
Sure.
And I thought it was interesting, and because he was talking about office a little bit, because him and his team are still buying office, and we started to kind of like jump in the conversation a little bit, and I was like, oh well, man, like, obviously, like headlines like say a lot of like really crazy stuff, like office is going to crap, like all this crazy stuff, like the world's blowing up on fire all over the place, like crazy. And I liked his thought on it, man, and it's something that to complement your point. Is he told me, he's like, it's very easy, for them to say that, for blogs and articles and that type of thing, to paint a certain picture. But the reality of it is like, there isn't just office as its own thing. Like, it boils down into even smaller sub asset classes. And he was telling me about like the medical office. He's like, like, are you still gonna still have like, checkups and stuff to go to, like all these different things, like appointments, whatever. Like that's something that's always going to be there, right, because it fills a need. Same thing with your example with the real estate. People are always going to need a place to live, man. You know what I mean? And
I have some partners that are very geographic based, and they'll buy different assets. And one in particular, Huntsville, Alabama, extremely strong market. And, we've partnered on a couple deals there. And, I have team members that are with me like, hey, we should look at this, car washes. And obviously, it's funny because like a lot of these multifamily syndicators, when you follow them, now they're all doing car washes. Like they're finding stuff. And, for me, and, I tell one of my team members, because he's responsible. So we have these RV&boat business storage, which I'm getting really passionate about. These things, for many reasons, are great asset classes. But I'm like, you're like a Marine sniper, man. Like, just focus on pre-leasing this development. Because when you start looking at all the different asset classes and you start doing a shotgun approach, then you're not an expert at anything. Like you're distracted, and time goes against you when you're looking at this broad picture. So, for us, we started at multifamily, we became experts at it. We've done well at it, and we're going to continue doing it if we can find deals that pencil and make sense. And then we started going into build to rent. Build to rent, I really like. It's an asset class that, again, helps solve the housing crisis that we have from a shortage standpoint. For build to rent, for those that are listening, there are single family homes. Think of it like an HOA, a neighborhood, and there's, say, 100 single family homes that have the exact same floor plan inside, different, some different elevations on the outside, but they're treated like what you would do like a normal vertical multifamily, the way you would manage a vertical multifamily. But in this case, it's a horizontal multifamily. You have a manager, you have a leasing agent, but they're single family homes with the backyard. Many reasons why I love that asset class. But I also want to see success in the deal that we got our hands on. And so I'm going to pause a little bit on build to rent to see what the full cycle of that deal. And then I mentioned the RV boat and business storage. We bought one in Huntsville, Alabama with a partner, and it has cash flow day one. The payroll expense is almost non-existent because most of the lease contract and delinquency, all that's automated through the software system, and you don't have to worry about evictions because there's no eviction court. You either pay your rent and you get your stuff, or you don't pay your rent and then we auction your stuff. Like it's just the emotions of it are gone. From an insurance standpoint, you're just insuring the steel building. You're not, having to insure flooring, and, it's a concrete floor, right? So you're not insuring, cabinets and all the different appliances and things. So anyway, I've gone a little bit heavy on RV and boat. We're developing one in Bryan College Station now, and I see us developing more of those. So with that said, I like the approach of the geographic, circling back to what you're saying, Kyle. Like geographic is important, especially if you know that area really well. I do have a little concern when you're focusing on so many different asset classes, because you're not really, unless you have team members, and there are groups out there that have team members that focus on their office or retail and such. Unless you have that, it's pretty hard to truly be a subject matter expert, in my opinion. Take it for my opinion.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I totally hear you, man. It's kind of the, jack of all trades. Yeah. Master of none type of thing. Yeah. And like the one thing and, that type of thing, 80-20.
Yeah. And it's good to be diversified. I mean, that's the other side of that is like, hey, we can, that group or other groups can offer a very diversified portfolio. And maybe if they're partnering with people who are those subject matters and those, that particular asset class. So, but yeah, between multifamily and RV boat and business storage, those are the two that we're really going to hone in and focus on. And not to say I won't look at other deals or other asset classes down the road, but really zeroing in and trying to be as an expert as possible in executing the business plan. Because you can be an expert on pricing and getting to the point, but when the property is yours and you're having to retain residents and make decisions on price increases and negotiating contracts and, how do you get through evictions and, some crazy stuff goes on in this, this housing, so it just, it can wear on you. It can be tough. So you got to try to be focused and sort of master that craft as much as you can.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And
all this doesn't happen if you're a passive investor.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about, all that. You don't really get a lot of gray hairs and extreme. And so passive investing is, there's a lot of benefits. We haven't really spoken a lot about passive investing, but for a long time, Kyle, I didn't realize that people could invest in real estate unless they were an institutional type buyer or extremely wealthy. I don't know why. It just didn't dawn on me, even after working all those years with CBRE. It was like 16, by the time I was, 2019, 2018 was going around, I was starting to learn about, hey, we can pool our money and buy assets. And, people that are good at what they do from an operations, management, leasing, those things that I've really enjoyed. And, I can't even go to a football game without seeing a light out in the ceiling and being like, come on. I mean, we're in the VIP section and your lights out. We have club seats at the Texans stadium, and there's just one light above this escalator. And if I was the property manager, we would have fixed that light, game 1, game 2. It was like, here,
if it were me,
13, yeah, game 13, and that light is still out. But that's the mindset of a true real estate professional. It doesn't leave you when you leave the office. Like, you're always thinking real estate. You're always looking for deals. You're sitting, like last night, I was watching Kansas City and Buffalo Bills play football. And I'm like on my recliner trying to find, opportunities to buy. Like, it's in my blood. It's like people go out and golf and stuff. That is not everybody's passion, but a lot of people want that benefit of real estate investing. And so what they don't realize is they can invest passively in investing in certain, in these deals where they can benefit, with tax depreciation and that passive income, et cetera, without having to, be worried about, frozen pipes or flooding or, those type things that, are going to happen, in a physical asset that, you own.
Yeah, 100%, man. And I mean, even like folks that may have played a lot more of an active role, for potentially decades, managing their own, multis and that type of thing, and just have enough, and still want to see the returns, but don't want to deal with all the stuff that we like at the moment.
That's such a good point. I spoke at a Rotary Club meeting last week about passive investing, benefits of passive investing. And one of the guys I've gotten to know through this club, he came to me afterwards. He's like, I don't talk about this a lot, but I made a lot of money, and I made a lot of money in real estate, and I sold it all, and I don't want to get back into real estate. But he's like, let's have lunch, because I'm interested in learning about passively investing. He's like, I don't want any of the headache. He's lived that, and there are headaches with that. But obviously it treated him well because he's retired. But you make such a good point. At some point, Kyle, I will want to just be passive. Yep. Being completely out of real estate investing, for those that are looking for generational wealth, being completely out, to me, it just scratches my head. If you're not in real estate investing, diversifying into real estate investing, it's something that you really should look at, especially on the tax depreciation. That's where, the true opportunities of generational wealth and growing really come into play. Because if you're able to, think about it this way, like it's harder to do this on the single family side, but on these larger assets, when you start doing what's called a cost segregation study, and you have this engineering firm coming in, and instead of doing a typical 27.5-year depreciation life cycle on an asset, you're able to put a time of like cabinets 5 years, flooring 3 years. You start moving up. Instead of a blanket 27.5-year depreciation on the asset, now it's depreciated over 2, 3, 5 years of certain categories. That passive income, now this is not on the active side, but on the passive income that you're getting, if you start seeing the passive losses via that depreciation, I mean, that's huge. I mean, and that's what I'm starting to, I see with our investors. I have one investor who he's making over $130,000 annually on passive income. And we're in January, and in March, he's going to be getting a K1 that's going to show a lot of passive losses because the physical asset, the depreciation. And everybody kind of needs to talk to their own tax consultant, and everybody needs to realize that Uncle Sam's going to come after their taxes one way or the other, at the end. Yeah. But even then, there's ways, if you're working through it with the tax strategist, of finding ways to defer that taxes. Maybe that's through a 1031. Or finding ways to push the timing of when you pay that taxes. I'm not a tax consultant. I'm just seeing in real life of, the benefits that's happening. And then people are turning that passive income, say you're passively income over, say, 10 years, you're investing, and you're turning into that. One of my investors who I said is making a little bit over 130,000 annual income. Then you get to choose, Kyle, do you continue working, or do you go to Montana where my wife's family is and just enjoy the beautiful mountains? Yeah. A lot of my investors, Kyle, they don't hate their jobs. I didn't hate my job when I worked for CBRE. I loved my job. It was, real estate was great. There are doctors that go to medical school. They don't want to leave their job. Yeah. Just yet. Someday they will. Construction attorneys, a lot of people don't want to leave their job, but they want that passive income. Because once you get that passive income, then you start paying your liabilities or the things like your cars and stuff through that passive income, and your freedom of your time and your choices, exponentially just gets so much larger, because you really don't have to work. At some point, your passive income, if it exceeds your expenses, I mean, to me, that's wealth. The wealth doesn't mean having $2, $3, $5 million in the bank. Yeah. My simple philosophy on wealth is if your passive income is greater than your expenses, you're wealthy. I mean, it's really as simple as that. So it's a controlling expenses and passive wealth. But I know we're going all over the place. But from a real estate investment side, true wealth will happen obviously on the active side, but heavily on the passive investing side as well, for those that are looking to diversify and have a time, mindset that, none of this is overnight. No one's getting rich overnight.
Absolutely, man. No, I totally agree. And it's funny you say that too, because one of the things I like to ask all my guests is what wealth means to them. So you beat me to the punch, man. I love it.
Yeah, that's it. And I think it was all Rich Dad Poor Dad or something. But I'm like, when I read that or someone else told me that, I'm like, it makes so much sense. Because if my passive, we invest in our deals too. So we're also getting returns from our passive and, our investment. We're getting those returns too as investors alongside the deal. And, that 50,000 turns into 100,000, and then that 100,000 is going into another deal, and it grows your nest egg. But if you're making 100,000 passive income, and you live a normal, not too, crazy
Flashy,
lifestyle, you could be able to, make the bills, your bills meet. And then when you turn in, you're getting away from active income, which is 100, that's your taxable. Passive income is not taxable from a standpoint if you've got other opportunities to offset it with paper losses.
Yeah.
And there's always, talk to your tax person. This will be my first year, Kyle, that I've hired a tax strategist.
All right.
I've always used TurboTax previously.
Let's go.
I always used TurboTax, but this is the first year. But it gets to a point where then it gets a little more fun because it's like, okay, well, hell, I'm still paying a lot of taxes. I mean, two of my properties, and I'll just speak of the two. One's a $230,000 real estate tax that I'm paying this month, and another is like $250,000. Great thing is our residents pay that over 12 months. We escrow, but I mean that we're giving back, and then we've got payroll taxes, and we pay taxes in a different way. But if you can shield your personal income tax by following the law and doing the benefits of what real estate has to offer, it's a great way to grow wealth and, create a legacy, for your future family.
100%, man. It's such a beautiful thing. It really is. And exactly even if like a point that I want to make here, guys, is like, even if, to his point, like, say you're a doctor or an entrepreneur or you work at CBRE, like if you just love the occupation, your business that you're in, you're always thinking about it around the clock, kind of like real estate to you and I, like you don't like to leverage the benefits of real estate. Like you don't need to think about it 24/7 like we do. Like you can still invest passively, in deals, that are executed by experts and, with a lot of past knowledge and history and experiences and that type of thing, and still be able to leverage, all of those multiple items from multifamily, especially with the depreciation component, like shit,
Yeah. I think, it's, I actually like talking about this, Kyle, from a standpoint of again, not everybody hates their job. I mean, that's on LinkedIn. Everyone's like, you leave your W-2 and stuff like that. I didn't even want to leave my W-2 when I gave my notice. The only reason why I really gave my notice is because I couldn't do my investors right by having a W-2 and focusing on real estate investments. And I wasn't doing right by my client, who I was working for in the W-2 world, because I was focused on, but, people that are, especially if they put years and years in their medical studies or engineering or whatever it is, like just giving that up and not doing it. Most people still have that passion, which is good. It's good. It's good to know not everybody hates their job. Like
yes,
it's another way to diversify and scale your wealth. And again, it takes time. And I've got blogs and such on my website, talking through this. And I think this type of podcast helps people that way. And I think a lot of active investors, they have this idea of like, hey, I want to, go into real estate and in 5 years or less, I'm going to be retired, or not retired, but like out of my W-2 and killing in the real estate world. But once you get into real estate investing, it'll eat you up, or you'll just take the lickings and just continue doing it. And I think what's interesting too right now, Kyle, is a lot of people, the last 5-10 years or so, especially the last 5, you didn't have to do much and make a lot of money in real estate investing. The cap rates continue to compress and compress and compress. Now it's like a wake up call. They're like, oh man, we got to have weekly property management meetings. We got to, scrub the rent roll and make sure the management company is doing what they're supposed to be doing. And, following up, it's brutal in some cases. And so you're starting to see people that are just like, you know what, this isn't for me. And that sucks for those investors who, are trusting that sponsor. And as I said before, because I think podcasts are important because it shows all the transparency.
Absolutely.
And, I've got one, and some sponsors wouldn't be this vulnerable and go out. They want to make it sound like everything is going amazing.
Yeah.
I've got one deal that is suffering. Like we're pushing through, but we had a call with investors last week where we were very open and like, hey, this is what we're doing and this is what we're needing, et cetera, to get through this process. And the emotions when the deal's starting to go south, you do get a little embarrassed. You feel like, oh man, I got a black eye, or like, man, this sucks. I'm embarrassed, especially when you have other people's money alongside your money, but especially when you have other people's money involved. But the Marine in me, like it sort of switched in December timeframe. I'm like, you know what? Suck it up, tighten your bootstraps and get through it. When tough gets tough, you push through and you do it for your investors. And that is the mindset that I want to see with all syndicators and sponsors. If you're getting into this and you're taking other people's money and you're doing, for the most part, they're good people and they're underwriting deals and they're making assumptions and they have the best of intentions. But when things go south, things out of your control, the market is like insurance is doubling, real estate taxes is going crazy, payroll, finding good people who actually want to show up to work and, do collections and get yelled at by other residents. Like it's not sexy.
Yeah.
But if you can get through it and lead from the front, that's going to separate the good syndicators from the sponsors. And when you have that transparency with those investors, that's when they keep coming back. And to me, Kyle, that is the biggest compliment I get is every time I have a deal, many of those investors are continuing to invest, which is already a compliment of itself, but they're doing larger checks. And when they're doing larger checks and I talk to them, their biggest thing is like, we always get a monthly report. We always get the financials. You're always transparent and we always know where we stand, good, bad, or ugly. Like it doesn't matter. Like and I think that's huge for the future syndicators that may be listening to this or passive investors, like that transparency and that communication and knowing that syndicator sponsor has got your back and will do whatever it takes necessary to see through rough times. I think it's going to separate many of our syndicator sponsors, in the near future.
Absolutely. No, 100%, man. Especially like you said, in times like now and in the past 12, 24, 36 months, over in the past, 5 to 10 years, because it's a drastically different ball game now, and it's like things aren't always going to be, peaches and cream all the time. So it's like, and just staying authentic and truthful and real and getting through it together.
That's it. Getting through it together and having the right partners, Kyle. And I feel like I'm on a soapbox now, but having the right partners, and those partners are the limited partners too.
Yeah.
And when you have those calls and you're working through, like they want to know that their jockey in the front isn't giving up, isn't folding.
Yeah.
And so, and having that plan and even being transparent with the plan, like, hey, a lot of variables have to go right for this plan to even work, and that's okay too, because it allows people to fully see what's happening. So I just, really want to point out on this podcast that real estate historically has been a solid asset to diversify and to grow wealth in. And when we get into these times where it's like, it's tough to buy because loans aren't easy to get, people are sitting with their cash, et cetera. It's tough. But if you can find those assets and you get those investors and you pull your capital and you're going in and buying when times are tough, we're all going to be looking back and hopefully on your show in a few years, Kyle, we're like,
we made it.
We
thrived. Yep.
We thrived through it. And that's what because this isn't, you and I, this isn't a 6 month or we're trying this out, dipping our toe. Like, this is our profession. This is what we love to do. So, we will be at it in a few years, and it'd be fun to, hopefully your show's still going.
That's the plan, man. Absolutely. But awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming on here, Wayne. This was an absolute blast, man. We're on like social media and your website, that kind of stuff. Anything you want, I'll put down.
For sure. And I'll send you all of our handles, but you at CREI Partners is where most of our stuff's at, with YouTube and LinkedIn. But if you go to www.CREIPartners.com, I've got a lot of podcasts and blog information. But for those that are wanting to connect and learn about what we're doing, and looking to passively invest with us, CREIPartners.com. Go ahead and click invest with us, and fill out the information. The other thing too, I started last year, Kyle, was a passive investor coaching program. We do a monthly meetup. The fourth Monday after this podcast, I've got a meetup that I host. And it's great because you got a lot of investors who learn about passively investing, but it may take them 12 months to get the full picture. And that's fine. Some people just want that free education that takes some time for them to digest and all that and ask questions. And I've got investors that, have waited, a while before they did an investment. But what I found is a lot of people want the information as quickly as possible because they're eager to start doing it. So I started a passive investor coaching program. If you go to passiveinvestorcoaching.com, you can learn more about our program. And I really go to A to Z and accelerate people's learning about, passive investing, really just to help them make a better decision if an opportunity makes sense for them or not. So CREIPartners.com and passiveinvestorcoaching.com are two great websites.
I love that, man. Thank you so much.
That's a wrap for today's episode. We want to thank you for being a valued listener of the Creating Wealth Podcast. Make sure to visit www.creatingwealth.com to connect with us. Dive into our ever-expanding library of informative blogs and explore a wide range of additional valuable resources. Stay tuned for our next episode as we continue to create wealth together.